All right, so DPRG monthly meeting part 2, donkey car session. So we have good visitors here today, and also from Hackster. Thanks for showing up. So just a few quick words. We talked about this last fall, and now we've got a good month, and we actually have 5 or 6 donkey cars in various stages, even here today. People building them up, and there's some other people that we know of that haven't, that didn't come today, but that are working on it. So we'll have probably a good 8 or 10 or 12 of these things to race in another month or so, and share around. For those that aren't aware of it, there's a couple of Slack channels, and I have this printed up on the sheets around the room and at the door and at the front of the makerspace. But has anybody? How many people have used Slack before? Okay, some fair number. For those of you that haven't, I just wanted to call out, there's 2 Slack channels for this donkey car project. They're really good, both of them. One was started by Jonathan out of Hackster, and it's just for our little DFW clique of donkey car people. And the other one's worldwide. The other one has like 2,600 people on this project. I mean, literally countries around the globe. So these links, you can just take a screenshot of the paper, but it'll help you sign up for the Slack channel. For those of you that haven't seen Slack, I thought I'd just do a quick demo so you can understand the value of it. And so I have a bunch of Slack channels on mine. This is the Dallas DFW donkey car. And what you can do is there's these different channels up on top, and then you can direct message different people down below. So we have a lot of activity so far. It's only been up for a week, but we have a lot of activity in the donkey car channel. And what you can do is, like, let's say, oh yeah, I think that Nate guy who's not here today, didn't he have something on, what was it? Reinforcement learning, which is an AI thing that you can use to help train your donkey car to drive around. Well, you don't remember what that R word is, but you remember learning, so you type learning in up here, you hit enter, and here we go. Ron has posted something about that. Here's Nate. Nate has an article on reinforcement learning for donkey cars. And so he's got this nice resource in here. Other people have been asking about just learning in general in terms of AI, and apparently Nate works in the AI field, so he's in machine learning. He's pretty well aware of that. And he's posted these resources in here, so if we want to learn about it, you can just find Nate's post, and then he even recommends go through these steps, 5 or 6 steps, and you can get up to speed pretty quickly on what's going on under the covers for the donkey car. So, so it's a really handy resource, and that's just the Dallas one in the first week. Like if you go over to the worldwide one, and you can see on Slack, it kind of highlights in white the things you haven't seen.
That's actually a really cool board right there. That's a really cool board right there.
The MM1 hat.
Yeah.
So it's an open source robotics controller board hat for Raspberry Pi, and it's got Harold's endorsement, which means cool.
I haven't used it, but
it's cool.
I haven't used it, but it looks like it'd be really cool.
It's got Harold envy, so it's good. It's got to be good. But yeah, so there's lots of good things in here, and I mean, there's a handful of people that have done extensions, things building on top of the donkey car, and people answering questions. So if you get stuck on something, you can just type in the little search window, say, how do I set up for the Mac? And somebody will have solved that. How do I set up a course? Somebody will.
The only caveat to that is that Slack is free to use or pay. And in the free model, I think you're limited to 10,000 messages before things start rolling off.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of something, but I don't know. I know you can pin things to a channel, so you can pin messages that'll always be there. And I don't know how they're affected by that limit.
But a free level.
Yeah, at the free level.
So it can catch up with us after a while.
Yeah,
if we're too successful.
If we're so successful, maybe that's a problem. But
yeah.
Can we put a screen scraper on it and just start scraping your?
You can do that too.
Or you can just do like, I do this all day. If there's an interesting thread, I'll copy it and put it in a Word document.
Yes, exactly.
It goes away. Yeah, and keep it.
Okay, so that's the Slack, and then again, you can find the places to sign up for those. You just enter your email, it'll send you an invite, you make yourself a password, and you're in. There's a nice mobile app for your phone, so you can be bothered during the day at work if somebody posts something cool.
And that was the Windows app you were showing there?
This is the Windows app I showed you.
It's also available on your mobile devices.
Mobile devices, Linux, Windows.
Yes.
It's cross-platform.
And my work colleagues bug me many times an hour on the phone, so it's Slack.
You can turn that off if you really want.
I know, but yeah.
But he's hating his job. No, I didn't say.
So, with that in mind, I'll show you something that surfaced last night in our little Dallas crowd. And we had Ross post this cool little video right here. And Ross is here today, so Ross, do you want me to show the video or just hand it over to you? How do you want to proceed?
You might as well show it working.
Okay, so of the 10 or 15 of us in the Dallas area that have been doing it, it seems that Ross is the first to actually get it done. So this is a robot he's brought today, and as you can see,
Oh, cool. So extension cord.
extension
Excellent.
cord course.
Yeah.
Track really quickly.
Excellent.
You have a really clean garage.
I will tell you, Jonathan's gotten out and got a big like cloth kind of tarp he's supposed to have.
Cool.
Like a 10 by 10 kind of thing or something. So
Yeah.
we may have us a racetrack here.
That'd be good.
Good.
Excellent.
And this was driving itself, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, you use the phone to initiate it, but then I had to switch over from the web page to the camera, so I needed two phones really. But yeah, so that was just on Thursday morning. I got it to run for the first time.
And when you say the camera, so it's sending a camera feedback somewhere, or?
No, it's right now it's basically the camera is on the Pi, it's attached to the Pi, and there's a neural network on the Pi that is looking at those lines. And I actually can show you a video of what the camera is seeing. There's a utility within Donkey Car that you can create a little movie, and I've done that, so I'll show you what that is. So,
Did you drive the track to train it first?
yeah, and I'll show you what that looks like.
Okay.
You want to use this one?
Yeah, I'll just use that.
Okay. Here's the cord. Get it out of your way. Make the computer stop the noise. Stop.
Action up by where Dyson Truck is up in Frisco, going to the Star. They have some autonomous cars that shuttle people back and forth because they're parking into one building and shuttling over to the car, shuttling over to the Star. And there's a driver there, but that person is doing absolutely nothing. They're only there because they have to be.
Is that the orange and white ones?
I think those are what they are, yeah.
You know, when they first put those out there, the newscaster said, so you can know what to watch out for, this is what they look like, and showed a picture of it. I kid you not, that's what they said. Like,
You can see one run. I think it's going to be a long time
If you
before
run,
we as
then
a
you're-
society in general trust
The predator knows you're
of these
correct.
autonomous driving cars to have them as our utopia kind of thing.
That's only because we don't trust some of the drivers.
Well, no, I don't trust the programmers code that you're talking about, man.
That's right.
Moving slow, I get more points. The grocery bag stands after.
I'm a fairly conservative
Walmart
You have a lovely home, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Very nice.
There's a great.
So just to follow on from what Ray
Oh,
was
okay.
talking about,
Okay.
object detection.
Okay.
So you're going to start filming it, right?
Yeah, I'm filming. We're running. Yep. Go
Just to
ahead.
follow on from, before we talk about Donkey Car, really enjoyed your talk about OpenCV. I started learning OpenCV about a year ago, and I was trying to do object detection, and I took a class, and there was a guy that online, and he was really expert at it, and I got to speak to him just briefly on a web deal, and I said, well, how do you do object detection with OpenCV? And he basically said, you don't.
You don't.
You have to use a neural network to train it. But the things you taught me today was once you have object detection. So here I've got object detection running at home on my computer. But if you wanted to track that cell phone, it would track every cell phone. But with what you're showing me there, you could perhaps select it, and then it would track that particular
Just that
object.
one. Yeah.
And I trained it to learn what a game controller was using YOLO 2.
Yeah.
That was the YOLO 3. So So this is another way to do object detection is with a neural network. And,
Yeah.
the training was very slow on that because it doesn't have a GPU that TensorFlow recognizes. So I use something called Darkflow for that, which is a YOLO 2 trainer.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, I just thought I'd show you that before
Yeah.
we got into that because it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
The object detection.
To see it.
And this is using Python as well.
On the Pi.
And it's using OpenCV as well. I think OpenCV is to draw bounding boxes.
The boxes, yeah.
Now this is the OpenCV, YOLO running on a Mac.
On the Mac, okay.
Yeah. But so the let's see. I bought this car because I wanted to. This is where it came when I bought it. I had a thing and it had a missing servo, one servo on it, and I had to put a servo on the back. It's actually got four-wheel steering, which I didn't realize when I got it.
Wow.
So it was a $100 kind of purchase off of Craigslist. But I wanted a platform to do what's called GPS RTK, which is an outdoor navigation using a GPS. And so I wanted something that I've written some software to do that, and I've got some GPS RTK units, and I wanted a platform to do that. But I also knew I wanted to do computer vision with it. And then I read about the Donkey Car project in Wired magazine. And then I came back from a trip with my brother, and we had decided we were going to build a donkey car. And then I saw the Hackster.io, and you guys were going to build one. So that's why I decided to kind of join the group and have some fun with it as well. So this is what I started with. And then, it's hard to get rid of that. And then I ended up with, let's see, this is it under construction.
Is that like a 1/8 size?
I don't know.
It's a rideable.
Yeah. What?
So-
It's a rideable.
It's a yeah.
So,
Semi-rideable.
oh, interesting, you mentioned the RDK. I didn't know about that. So that's a dual GPS thing where you have a base station and you get phenomenal accuracy, do you not?
You get
You get centimeter level.
You get up to 2.5 centimeter accuracy.
With high rep rate, high rate of updates?
Yeah, well, it depends. Hopefully you won't be moving that fast. Outside robots, I'm not going to be moving that quickly, but yeah, it's pretty quick. I've got mine set up every 10th of a second. It gives you a new GPS location to 7 decimal places. And that's really
So that
really
could
impressive.
really augment your data or even
Yeah.
be your data, really,
Yeah.
for driving a course, I suppose. So very interesting.
Yeah, but I'm interested in these robots that, you see the delivery robots. I think Amazon have them now. There's one in California, there's some in England. And they, I'm from England, by the way, that's why I talk this way.
Oh,
and
kind of guessed.
kind of a giveaway. But they have these outside robots and they're doing deliveries, okay? So how are they doing that? How are these robots delivering that? And why have we not got robots everywhere? And so this is the thing I was trying to learn. And that's why I started down this path. But I've also been doing stuff with neural networks. I showed you the object detection. So I've been fascinated with neural networks and how they work, and using TensorFlow, a little bit of Keras. So how many people here have worked on TensorFlow or any kind of neural network?
We're trying to stick our
Just
toe
learning
in.
it.
That's why we're
Just a
here.
little bit. All right. Yeah.
Now,
It's-
I might mention, I've seen graders out on the road that have 2 sensors, one on each side
Of the blade, yeah.
of the blade for actually doing grading
Oh,
based on the
Really,
RTK.
on RTK.
Yeah.
Well, of course, the
yeah.
big combine harvesters and the big, farmers use RTK.
Yeah.
And I spoke to, I went to CES recently. I'll show you a picture. I've got some pictures lined up here.
It's about a $500 or $600 proposition, I guess. A couple $100 for the base and a couple $100 for the,
Is it? Yeah.
I think, something like
And
that.
then you get subscriptions, because it's satellite plus terrestrial.
Oh.
Yeah, it's satellite
Oh,
plus.
so the
This is a
satellite
picture of
stuff
my
for
brother
price
and I at
subscription.
CES in 2010. We were always in front of a car. And And this is us in just a few weeks ago. So you see the difference in the resolution of the camera. Can you tell me what kind of car that is?
Fast.
Huh?
Fast.
Fast. It's fast.
Formula One?
No, we're close.
Formula E? Is that Formula E stuff?
This is the Gen 2 Formula E car.
That's kind of a nutty thing, that Formula E thing is. I watched a few of those races, how they're switching cars halfway through and a few other things.
And why that's of interest to this group is because at these races, they're also going to try and do autonomous races. So they have an autonomous car. I think it's called, I forget the name of it now. I can pull up a picture. It's really cool looking, full-size autonomous race car.
So is it racing at speed right along with these guys?
The video I saw, it was close.
Wow.
They actually, it raced, time-wise, it raced a professional driver. So it put a professional driver in one of, it was actually a prototype of this self-driving car, and it put a professional driver in it and raced it around a track, a road track, and then they had it run in autonomous mode, and the professional driver beat it. But I think I think
It won't last.
Yeah,
Won't last.
exactly. It won't last. I think it's
Just why beat
fascinating.
it one time.
Yeah.
Because we all like seeing things go fast, right? And I love seeing these things go fast on a track. But when you put a car like that and you make it autonomous, I think I saw a simulation of the Nuremberg ring, and they said that if the car in simulation had gone around that with a human in it, would kill the human. The G-forces would kill him.
Oh yeah, he'd be smushed to one side of the
I
vehicle.
mean, we've had planes like that for a long time, right? that will fly around and will outperform our capabilities to actually be inside the plane.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and they have G-suits and stuff.
Yeah.
They pressurize and sort of the blood rushing through the brain. So anyway,
So you're
that's
talking about like 200 miles an hour plus for those cars, or?
that one, they always in kilometers an hour. The Formula Ones are at 210 miles an hour, 220, sometimes 230 on the right type of track. 0 to 60 in about 1.9 seconds, and 1.8 seconds actually for a Formula One car.
Wow.
Just bearing in mind that I think Tesla next year is going to come out with a Roadster 2.0. It's 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds, so it's like a tenth of a second off of a Formula One car.
So the driver would pass out.
The other thing I thought was a bit weird watching the Formula E race that I got to see at one time was because they make no noise when they're coming in for the pits. They have a whole bunch of extra people out there going, "There's the car coming, get out of the way." There's, there's a whole bunch of more safety guys out there. Keeping people from getting run over by these cars that make very little noise.
Yeah.
I was going to ask a question about exactly that, because if you don't, I know I've driven hybrid electric cars from way back when they were first starting.
Yeah.
And because they don't make any noise, if you're in a racing situation, I gotta say, one of the fun things, if you're going to NASCAR, is to go right down on the line and hear that roar go past.
Be deafened by the sound.
It vibrates your whole body, so
Yeah.
I'm saying, is that gonna be the same experience?
Yeah,
with
there's
it?
a lot of high-pitched whining going on.
Yeah.
In Formula One, I'm a Formula One fan. They changed they went to a hybrid engine about 2014, and it lowered the revs and it lowered the sound, and people complained bitterly. The sound, and it just.
It's what you
Yeah.
embrace for
Well,
that.
it's the difference between a car revving at 17,000 RPM versus 9,000 RPM. At 17,000 RPM, it's like a motorcycle
Great.
basically revving, but much louder.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is that when monster truck rallies go electric, life as we know it is over.
You go to the stadium.
Talking about monster trucks, I want to show you a video.
Well, the other extreme of that, though, is that, if you're next to a Formula One and it is on a track, and you can scream at the top of your lungs and you won't even...
So much is hearing through your ears.
It's
as much
feeling in
as
your
it's
chest,
feeling.
right?
Yeah, your
Wow.
heart is actually.
So this is you driving it in RC mode?
Wow.
That's the first. So yeah,
That was first round.
so this is me testing it at speed, and look at the speed it goes at. So I thought, well, let me try and do a flat go, and it's so fast.
Yeah.
And what happened there was the guy, when I took this to a hobby shop, because I don't know anything about hardware, my brother's a hardware guy, and I said I need a battery and I need a few extra things, and it had this 27 megahertz transmitter receiver on it, and he's like, oh, that's going to be tough under power lines. Well, guess what was directly above there? So he went in there and just completely lost control. And that's it, that's done. So anyway, the 27 megahertz receiver got pulled out of there, and it became a donkey car. But then I want to show you the one of the things I wanted to make sure of was that I could run it. And this is a video I made for my brother, because he's kind of helping me, at least consulting with me on this project. And I wanted to show him that I could actually drive it slowly. So I'm turning it on, and this is how we communicate, because we were like 40 minutes apart, 40 miles apart, so we kind of send each other videos of what we're doing. And so this is the old, style transmitter that I had when it was a RC car. And watch the first thing it does. It's so powerful. Yeah. These motors on here are 30,000 RPMs.
They're good. And they're geared way down, so the torque has got to be off the charts when it comes to that.
So I'm driving it slowly. It's like, I think I can make this a donkey car. And it's four-wheel steering. And then I start, driving a little bit faster. It's gone out of screen there. Look at that.
You hit the brakes.
Yeah.
Nose plant.
Has anyone been to a monster truck rally?
Not a person.
I took my son when he was 5. He's 18 now. He's taller than me. When he was 5, I took him to a monster truck rally. Just, it's a father-son thing too.
So did that reduce your life expectancy by a number of weeks?
I know. Yeah, you talk about ear protection. Oh my God, that was loud.
Oh yeah,
really loud.
They're very loud.
I had earplugs and ear cuffs over his ears at 5. It was a lot of fun.
Because they've got pipes on those things and no muffler, no nothing. They just want it all.
It's meant for sound.
Yeah.
So Rouse, how long from the time it was a RC truck to now it's an autonomous donkey car?
I started the weekend after that meeting, because I went and bought this little guy, the Meetup at
January.
Hackster in January. So it's been a
Third week of January, 1 month. Way to go.
Wow,
yeah,
that's pretty good.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Getting to it.
So you were able to just use the existing donkey car software. You didn't have to really do any additional tweaks to the software. You just
that's when it went in after its 2,000 kilometer service.
Yeah.
Rotate the tires, and, lube the chassis.
Rotating tires, yeah.
Yeah. So the thing I want to talk to you about is the problems I have with the software, and so the hardware side of it, is relatively easy with a couple of exceptions. The part, let's see if I can wiring up close. Yeah, so I got this working, but I'm standing on the shoulders of giants getting this working, because the Python code and the network stuff, they've figured this out, and I think they've done a really good job. But in the documentation, there's a few things that they kind of just gloss over. And the one is this wiring from this board here that controls the servos to the Raspberry Pi. And I looked, I've got this diagram on the website, but I'm not a hardware guy, so I cannot decipher what does this mean. And so then I'm looking at the video. They got a video that they mentioned at Hackster.io. Watch this video, there's a guy building one from start to finish. And then when he's plugging it in, his hand is obscuring where the wires are.
so
You just put it right here.
This is so difficult.
Okay, so you just from to exactly.
So then what I did was I took a freeze frame of the video. I think it's this. I think it's these pins here. And I guessed right. So then, so that's why I took some photos up close, because I had to take it apart. And it's on the back here. Turn this around, it's on the back here. So this part here connects there. So let's talk about the problems I had. So the first thing they tell you to do is, normally don't have a screen, just have the Pi and this other board,
Right.
and then you SSH into it.
Yeah.
Before you do all that, you've got to prepare a little micro SD card with the image of a Linux image that is set up for Donkey Kong. And you've got to put a file with your Wi-Fi credentials, if you will, your SSID and password in that file, config file, and you've got to put it in a special place on the SD card, and then you put it in. It just wouldn't work for me. Now, my brother gave me this, so he already had the screen, and he never used it, and I thought, well, I couldn't get the Wi-Fi to work. So what I did was I plugged a USB keyboard into this, and I logged directly into Pi that way, and then I was able to, and they put in the documentation how to update that config file on the machine. So when you put it on the SD card, it copies it somewhere.
Yeah. It's supposed to copy it into that same place, and I don't know that it really does or not.
Yeah,
Because I'm playing with that. That's what I've been playing with over here.
I think what I failed to do, and I've not tested this, but I think I failed to create a boot folder in the boot folder. So I'll say that again. I failed to create a boot folder in the boot folder. So how confusing is this, right?
Yeah.
So then when you create a folder called boot and put this config file in that folder, why it wasn't in the image, or I don't know. But anyway, I think that's what I did wrong. But I had to go directly into this using a keyboard, and then I could update that, and then it got onto the Wi-Fi. So this has to go on the Wi-Fi to be able to talk to this via Wi-Fi, right? So it has to have an Ethernet address. And I didn't change the machine name. That's another thing we've got to do. So if we're in a room full of these pies, right, you don't all pies. The instructions were just for Linux, and so I haven't done that yet. I need to figure that out. So that's another reason why, collectively, if we work together, we can all, we can help each other out, so we don't all have to go up these same learning curves.
What else you can do is what you should be able to do. I'm trying to try that out. Is in that WPF supplicant file that you got to put your SSID in. You can put multiple SSIDs in there. You can put multiple configurations in there. And then whichever one you happen, if you know all the ones where you're going to be, like here at your home, on my cell, a lot of times when I'm doing presentation, I have my cell phone fired up.
Use it as a hotspot.
Whichever is, no, it's not a hotspot itself, but you use your phone as a hotspot. You know where all the hotspots are going to be wherever you are, and you go ahead and preload all those configs. So when you turn on that, you turn on your Raspberry Pi and you turn on your laptop, hopefully you talk to the same hotspot, so now you will have some way to get that. The only problem that I have right now is I don't have a way to get the IP address that I get showing up because there's currently no head on this. And so I'm trying to figure out a way to get that IP address in a sane fashion.
You want the IP address sent back to you?
Yeah. I don't have a screen.
Well,
see, when I can put it, I do have a little screen, and I'm thinking about mounting it on top here to display some stuff.
Anyway, my buddy at work, he's already got a little. For $2, you get these little I2C displays.
Yeah.
He's got his IP address out there. He's got his CPU, utilization, memory utilization.
I've got a whole bunch of that stuff that I can mount on top of these. I just haven't. I just want to build the car straight up first, and before I start adding a bunch of things to it.
Well, what about? I mean, if you know your hotspots ahead of time, why don't you just MAC address assign static?
Well, I can't necessarily do that because I don't control the DMS stuff, right? But what I can do, and it just occurred to me as I'm talking, duck debugging, right? You guys have all my ducks. What I can do if I have me some access, I know I'll get an IP address. I know I can connect up to it. If I'll configure this thing to know how to talk to a dynamic DNS server. So as soon as it comes on, gets online, it'll contact some DNS server out in the outside world, and then it'll give it the IP address it's now supposed to have. So when I connect this thing up, I know what the address is by using names. I don't have to remember numbers everywhere I go. And so that'll work.
This is the file.
I just haven't set that up yet, but it'll work.
You're an MVP. And this is the networks. You put the network in here, and you can just duplicate that multiple times
over and over.
Within networks.
Yeah, one quick thing about that inside your supplicant config file, you can also add a priority level because obviously when you forget to turn off the hotspot on your cell phone, but you get home, you want to have that priority level. You can set the priority so if it sees both, it will go with the one that has the higher priority level.
And I put a priority in. I put a priority in mine, but I tried to use tethering on my phone and it didn't work. So as strange as it is, I tested this first and then I had to train it, I thought I'd have to train it overnight. I lost the light, and I was training it. Didn't take as long as I thought it would be, actually, honestly. And and then I came home the next day to test it, to actually try it out, and I couldn't get to the web. Initially got a problem with the neural network, TensorFlow giving me an error. And I went to debug it, and I couldn't get to the web, and my internet was down for 24 hours. So I had to wait 24 hours to do a single pip command to fix the problem. But so yeah. So what kind of problems did I have other than getting the getting the SSID hook set up? Then I had to I had to get it so that you could actually run the car. And let me show you a video of the car running around the track. Let's see, movies.
Oh, I don't know how many people we have for show and tell. I have 13 minutes of video left on a camera. I have no idea. So anybody, I guess I should ask, can I just ask in advance, anyone else going to do show and tell?
I've got my stuff I can show, but I don't know. It shouldn't take very long.
Okay. Just you guys guide me, so okay.
So you're saying this is the video from?
This is the video from
first person.
Yeah, you can take all the images that get collected on the pod, and then you can offload them, and then it puts them in. You can create a movie out of it.
Yeah.
So this is the first training I tried. I ran out 10 laps, and so who can spot what the potential problems are with this situation?
Sunlight. Right there, the sunlight coming in.
Yeah, the sunlight
because it may not be there later.
Exactly.
And the black tape's a little confusing.
It could be, but the tape is not going to move. It's going to be the same place every time, theoretically, right?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
The lighting is the,
so that's
the bane of anything.
Boy, and it looks like it's kind of hard to see a track a lot of times. I'm not really seeing the edges. I'm seeing the tape chunks. But, that might be hard to...
The neural network is funny how they can really deal with a lot of noise. In fact, sometimes you end up...
I was wondering, do we really need the two lines for, two wires for a lane, or just have one and drive around the outside?
Yeah.
Or drive around the inside?
So
certainly have to work, right?
When I figured this
inside,
out...
just go left side to the back.
Well, if you saw the Donkey Kong race, or the DIY robotics race, which you're what is part of, if you look at their lanes, they have a outside, inside lane, and a dotted line in the middle. So I don't know how.
So you don't need another line.
You don't.
No, it would work on that line, the line track. Neural networks are very, very adapted. So, so here I've got the garage doors closed, the lights on. And so it's a messy environment, right? I mean, I've got extra clutter, and yet it's still managed to find those lines to say that's what I need to be looking at to be going left and right. So, and that was with 10 laps of training. I just did 10 laps because I ran out of time. They recommend 10 to 20 laps of training.
Now, when you're doing your 10 laps, are you driving it with your RC sticks? Okay.
No, actually you're driving it with your phone. So there's a web server on the Pi called Donkey Server, I think it's called. And you go to a web page they give you, and then it uses the accelerometer. It must be HTML5. It uses the accelerometer on your phone, which is actually problematic. So 10 laps, and I ran off several times because I'm doing that, and it's not turning. You have to go either a user error or latency, a lag, or something. So there is software in there to use a game controller. That's what I'd like to try and do next. Is use the game controller, because then you get a lot more. I'm assuming as long as there's no latency, you get a lot more control. And you don't have issues where you've got your accelerometer tilted slightly the wrong way. Yeah.
How does it know it's following the line rather than garbage in the room?
How does it know?
How do you know you're following the line rather than the...
How does the neural network know?
Bingo. Bingo.
And that's a great question. How the hell does it do that? How do you do it?
How
do you do it? How do you know where the track is?
I know where the line is, but I'm saying, how do you know that
what it's seeing.
It says real numbers in your
No, it's a black box.
Will, I-
Black box.
No, Will, I
And
think,
the answer is we don't know.
no, here's the thing.
Yeah, it's
Take-
a good question.
Let's
It's a
take
great
Will's question further,
Yeah.
because I will give you a hypothesis. I bet that if you rip up those orange quartz, but you're able to remember the approximate path that you follow and drive it, I bet if you do a training set like that, it doesn't need the lines because it's using the whole image, which has
Right.
walls and all this other stuff.
You're right.
Yes.
You're right.
So it'll
just can't
it'll
read
replay its
anything
Yeah.
play its views.
Boy.
So
Try
Maybe
pulling up
But in
one
a
of
neural
those
network, that might
cords,
work
leave the other
itself
one
out
down,
as
Yeah.
see if
random
it does
crap.
that.
You might be surprised what might be
This is
derived.
also-
Nah, I know,
You
I
might be
hear you.
Surprised as to what it really is keying on.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
it's
right.
probably
But
keying off
then you
of
let
the
it
ceiling
convolve the
lights,
whole
'cause they're
damn
the
room 10
brightest.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to go.
It might be the quartz that it's seeing.
Yeah, who knows what it's keying off of?
That's-
You know, so it's a great question. We don't really know.
Yeah, I saw an example with the.
They
Just know if it worked or if it didn't.
So I have seen, this is a convolutional neural network, and the convolutional means that it's taken the images and it's convoluted them. And I've seen images where it actually shows you the features of what it's looking at, the features that it's picking out to know go left, right, or forward. So
Yeah. I saw
theoretically,
something-
you could actually figure out what it's queuing off of. But you know what? Like turning left there could be that ladder. You know,
Yeah,
right.
instead of the lines.
Yep.
Yeah, the lights seem to be big features. I think those would feature in the neural network.
Here's the real question, when it's time for race day, it all worked great at home.
That's right.
How in the world do you get it to work in this new environment?
Sounds like you'd need to train it on the real course on the day of the race.
And hope that there's not varying light conditions, although, yeah, it's supposed to be not the end of that.
This- I
Okay.
don't know if this is,
So here's
Oh.
here's it running again on its own, right? The neural network is controlling the steering and the throttle.
right.
So there is a setting you can have with a constant throttle. This is how I trained it. Again, 10 laps of training. I'll try doing 20. And I'm also going to put down a better track. I bought some white tape, and I'm going to put down a permanent track. So if anyone actually wants to come over and train or use this track, you're more than welcome to. So someone said, okay, great question. What happens when you go somewhere new? With Donkey Car, you have to train it at that track. So
Yeah.
it's a per track training.
Well,
every
you
time.
may or may not. I mean,
For the-
you
for the
might
best
be lucky
performance,
because we
yeah.
don't really know what
Yeah.
it's.
Well, I think that's how they do it, right? But when they go to these races, they
I
train.
haven't seen how they run a race.
That's my understanding.
They train at the track. Now, there's a thing with TensorFlow and neural networks. It's called transfer learning. And transfer learning is what I did with YOLO. That YOLO stuff was all, when I trained it to recognize my game controller, it was using what's called transfer learning. And transfer learning takes all the features of the things it's learned already and said, I'm going to use all those features. And it can take weeks to train a big neural network. A lot of massive computing power, right? So how can you utilize that, leverage it, where you can use this transfer learning? So theoretically, you could combine, if we were using exactly the same neural network across the whole donkey world, right? You could combine it all and then start doing transfer learning. So as you train your car, you just basically do transfer learning. And that might be much, much more powerful. Then you could take that neural network and take it to a net new track. You've never seen it, but you don't train it, just run it, and it'll probably stay on course. And that's how Tesla does it, and that's how other cars do it.
So this might be the same thing that you're talking about, but I'm not sure. Say I trained something and I did 10 operations. I did okay, and I had a little trouble staying in line, and it works. Now, tomorrow, I want to come over. Do I have to retrain it entirely, or can I start from what I had before and now just say update? Don't nuke what I had before, just update where I already am.
I think
Can you do that?
So yeah, you can. What you do is you use the previous training data. So as long as it's the same track, you can add to the training data. So I do 10 laps today, and I've got what training data is, and I can show you it. It's a lot of images, and it's also some JSON files that have for this image number one, this JSON file number one, I want you to have this throttle input and this steering input. And that combined data is sent to the neural network. So the pixels of the image and that little bit of data, JSON data, that's what's sent to the neural network.
So,
With no explanation.
yeah.
No explanation of what it is. That's the interesting thing.
I took an online course on how to do neural networks.
Yeah.
But they never taught me how to start from what I already had and update. It was always, if you want to train it, and you start over.
Yeah, so.
And the question was, no, I've already spent 20 minutes doing this.
Yeah.
How do I start from there?
Yes, you can. With TensorFlow, there's a checkpoint. You can start from a previous checkpoint with new data. So with the default calibration, my motors were going backwards and the steering was in the wrong direction.
Yeah, so two reversals.
Yeah, so I had to calibrate it, which is changing just a config file. And I thought that was quite clever the way they did it. Also, with this screen, and actually with the image of Pi for Donkey Car, it's got the wrong operating system on it. And if you and I've researched this enough that if you with the wrong operating system, you get low voltage warnings. So when you add a screen and you add a keyboard, the voltage drops even more apparently. And I was getting it was hanging.
Huh.
So so my brother, being the hardware
low voltage indicators from the Pi.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Pi is
So
that
this actually comes up, so you can get under there. And there's a voltage regulator under there that my brother built, and I can adjust it. But I actually run the screen off this battery here because I was still getting those low voltage errors. And so then I bought another Pi the other day just as a backup with a power supply, and on the power supply box was tech support. And guess what that tech support said? It said, if you don't run the right operating system on your Pi, you will get a low voltage warning.
That's crazy.
So that was a problem I had, and so he figured that out.
So it really isn't a low voltage issue, it's a threshold issue?
It's
a big issue?
It's an operating system. Apparently there's an operating system called Noobs. If you use the latest version of Noobs, you won't get that.
Yeah, I think probably more than likely what it is that depending upon, because there's various versions of Pi's out there, and depending on what version of Pi you have and what version of the operating system you have, it may not be jiving so well. In fact, remember when we had the hackathon where a bunch of their stuff wouldn't boot on their preloaded? Yeah. I think that's probably got something to do with that.
Okay.
I bet it has something to do with that. If I was a guessing man, that would be my guess.
The other thing is you won't see it. I noticed when I SSH'd into the board, which is most of these Donkey Cars, you just SSH into it, you don't see those low voltage warnings. But it may hang. You may get these delays, which could cause problems in the training.
Maybe just in their instructions, you need to see you do an app updates, OS kind of thing and go. That probably should be in their instructions someplace. Yeah, that probably
so
gives it for you.
That was an issue I had.
Okay, wait, whoa.
He's done.
Stop. I've got to change the car.
Okay. So now you can go another 3 hours.
All right, we're ready to go again. Okay. So yeah, we're talking about the version of the operating system that you burn on the micro SD card, and you slide it into the Pi, and that's what boots up. And a couple of things: if you have the wrong type of SD card, that's not fast enough, you'll get problems. And I suspect the one I've got in here may have problems because I get data errors.
Is it a U3 brain?
I don't know. I forgot what I put in there.
Oh, okay.
You want at least a class 10 card.
Yeah.
It can record very fast.
Yeah, but I thought specifically they said a U3 rated card, which is like the fastest writing speed.
Yeah, I played with the Pi using Windows IoT as well. I had an experiment with that, and I bought a card because Microsoft is very specific. So only use this type of card, and here's 4 different cards you can buy. Yeah. So the other thing that you also need to do is, I bought a little switch because Pi's you have a little power cord you plug in and plug out. And I bought a little switch for it, and I thought, this is just a little bit of solid state hardware, like a phone. You just turn it on and off. Now it turns out you need to do a pseudo halt on the operating system.
Yep.
Or shutdown.
Yeah, shutdown.
It's shut down.
Shutdown -H.
But pseudo halt means you can then just unplug
That's
it.
not very much more than actually pulling the power when you're doing that.
But the reason why they said do that is because you corrupt the SSD.
No, you're right. What I'm saying is, a pseudo halt says stop everything now, bam. A shutdown -H says go out and run all of these things,
Clean everything up,
and then do the pseudo halt.
Yeah. It's interesting because
so it's,
the article I read was talking about how to clean up a corrupted Pi. So they gave you a command that would also corrupt it.
That would also potentially corrupt it.
So pseudo shutdown.
You want to do a shutdown?
Is it just shutdown?
Shutdown space
Dash
-H.
-H.
Space dash. Okay.
The H says
Yeah.
shutdown and halt. Shutdown just takes you from your multi-user level stuff to a single user mode.
Good
And
to
it's
know.
still working. It's still doing lots of the same things. Not all the same things, but lots of the same things.
Yeah.
And if you want to just reboot, it's a -R and to reboot the whole thing.
So with the screen on it, you actually right now you can see it saying like under voltage detected.
Yeah, I've got that going on mine too, so I will fix. I was wondering what that
part of the
was.
problem, but you have to have the right SD card, and then you have to treat it basically like a Windows PC, right? You just don't just unplug Windows PC, which I was doing. I was just ignorant.
If you're not writing to the SD
you
card,
can monitor
I've
voltage
done
and
installations
amperage.
where
So
what I do is I tested
really is
1,000
getting,
times the power cycle. It was okay, but I wasn't writing to the SD
wall
card in
ones,
most of those cases.
You know, it's
Yeah,
supposed to be 5 volts, but
the operating
most of
system,
those,
by
they say,
definition,
you know, well, we
it may
bumped it
well
up
be
to
writing to it.
5.1
So,
or 5.2
whatever.
volts.
Yeah, I know.
This is what I
It's
use
weird.
on
I got away with it.
project to work.
So I did test it. I tested
Then,
it.
all kinds of stuff like that. It does
Oh,
voltage.
wait.
Quite big
Yeah,
is
so
when you're doing your training,
Yeah, so you could probably. plug
does
it in
your
and see if you're
training
getting
system need to
Hey guys,
know?
hold on guys. Guys,
Does your training system need to know about servo movements and that you told it to go right and how far to go right and to speed up and to slow down? Does it need to know the input you're giving to the car?
yes, it does. And there's the guy, again, we're standing on the shoulders of giants here. They've already built all this, and there's a config file that for steering and throttle inputs, and they run you through a little kind of routine. You run a program, a Python program, and you need to have it up on blocks, right? So you can run the wheels, set the speed you want it to go at, and then also the throttle inputs. So it wants max left, max right. Okay, so you literally change these numbers in the program, and when you find the max left, you write it down. Like for instance, there's a throttle input that says stop, and when you find that I think it's like 360, and you write that down because that's what you're going to use. And then what's the maximum throttle input you want to use? You've got the stop, so what's the maximum for the speed you want it to run at? So, this kind of scary thing where you see how fast it goes. So I had it going pretty slow. And you write that down, and then you go back into a config file. I think it's called config.py. You change those settings, and then that's all you do. And that's how it can. Everything else is the software is pre-wired, if you will.
Okay.
But basically, if you think of it in RC cars, you're trimming it.
Right, I just didn't, the question I guess goes all the way back to, as you're driving it around the track all 10 times,
Yeah.
is it looking at your throttle left, your steering left, steering right, go forward, slow down?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
and the answer is yes.
That's the correlation it builds.
Yeah, and as you're training, what it's doing is it's writing out individual images, probably using OpenCV, I imagine, to take individual images off the camera and writing those to disk in a folder called tub. They call them tubs. And I'll talk about that in a second. They wrote it to a folder called tub, and say it's like 001.movie, and there's also a JSON file, I believe, with the same kind of encoding. And in that JSON file, they have those steering parameters.
Okay.
If you set a maximum
For each image.
of 10 miles an hour in your config file,
Yeah.
and then you train it at 2 miles an hour,
You
know
train.
what's it?
Yeah, that's a good question. On the I wish I'd actually taken some screenshots of of what the software looks like that's on the phone, and it allows you to select what maximum speed you want to go at, and again you're using the accelerometer, so you're tilting forward to go forward, and if you tilt it all the way forward, it will go to the maximum you've set in that config file.
Yeah, to me, that was like, driving under the influence RC version. I couldn't do the phone. I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
my God,
it's difficult.
It's sticky. I went to this thing.
Yeah, so Ray, so you said you added a RC controller.
Yeah, this was it's a
controller.
Tanner special. It's $6.95, and it's made to, I think it's a PlayStation clone. It is wired. I think Dave and some of the other guys were looking at a wireless version.
Yeah, wireless.
Yeah.
Tune in next month.
Yeah.
There
It's on its
are
way from China.
instructions on that Donkey Car website to do, I think a wireless, is it a wireless controller? It's using Bluetooth.
It might be, yeah. I didn't
because
use
the
it.
Pi has Bluetooth on board apparently. So
Right.
So yeah. So I think I'll attempt that because it is actually quite difficult to drive it
Yeah.
consistently. I got quite good at it, but then all of a sudden it's just driving off the track, and I'm going like this, and it's not responding,
anything,
and that's
yeah.
kind of frustrating. But
yeah,
they're
this was a lot
saying
easier.
they're saying instruction that's not such a bad thing. It's the neural network can kind of filter that out.
So question, you drove it 10 laps manually and it's captured all this image.
Yeah.
Then you take and run TensorFlow to learn from that, right?
Yeah.
And how long did that take is what my question is.
About 20 minutes.
About 20 minutes to learn
And
10 laps.
You actually take all the images, there's a tub file that puts all these images in these JSON files, and I think I had like 3,000 of them, okay? And you copy them with a command from the Mac or from the Windows. You copy them from the Pi to your laptop, and then you do the training on the laptop, because it takes time.
A lot of crunch power on it.
I think it would be good if you were showing the thing more track-like images. Now, I agree, if it's seeing fluorescent lights and whatever, that stuff is probably integrated into the network, but I would think you'd want your camera images to look like a lot of racetrack things.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Yes.
I mean, okay,
And
so
one
that's
of the
it.
things I
Okay,
can
It seems
that's all.
like you'd want a mask on your image.
Well, I mean,
to
I
crop out
agree, it could
irrelevant.
see the lights. I mean, there was some very significant
Yeah,
patterns that
look at my
I could
camera.
think that,
What I did from the first training to the second training is I tilted the camera back, because the first time it was seeing the front part of the car.
Yeah, all the time.
And the wheels were moving, and I thought, I thought perhaps that's bad for it. So
Yeah.
I tilted it. It's actually looking up, and it's a wide angle camera to miss the front of the car. And the reason why I mounted it here is because the cable's short. And then I got smart. I wonder if they sell longer cables. I'm a software guy. I'm like, oh, there's longer cables out there. So now I have a longer cable, and I probably will mount it here.
Yeah.
And then, to your point, just seeing the ground and just seeing the track is probably much better.
Right. You probably don't want to see the weeds at all.
And you have a wide angle lens, right?
Yeah, this is the one they recommend. The camera I bought, they recommend. They got a hardware parts list. That's what I bought.
What would happen if you took the car, trained it on the track, that is, run your 10, 20
Yeah.
laps, took it to a completely different track and run it?
Hard to say how well.
Well,
Excuse me, trained it again,
if you trained it again,
or not trained it again, but gave it more training.
yeah, if you added to the training,
Yes.
then it would. That's a good question. How if it was a distinctly different track,
Yes.
like you switched out the black and the white, instead
No,
of,
you went to a different location, so.
yeah, but it's a similar track.
Similar track,
I think
but everything around it
I think it
changed.
would add to the training. If you took all the training data and you appended it, and that's where these tubs come in. And I like somebody who gets play with it more than I do to figure out that they say if you've got multiple tubs, which are folders, you can combine them. And I think that's what you're talking about, combining multiple training sessions, and perhaps it makes it a better navigator.
Well, unless you're supposed to drive on the other side of the road.
You mean the right side or the wrong side?
You'd expect it to work though, because if all you're doing is enlarging the training set, when you run it on your laptop to build the model,
Yeah.
I believe that it iterates until it reaches a certain level of prediction accuracy, right?
Yes.
So the thing is that then instead of training the neural net to just understand it was one course, you're basically training it to understand both courses, But the neural net's anyhow going to iterate, because what it does, if you have 3,000 images in your tub, then it'll take 80% of them to build the neural net, and then keep iterating on the neural net until the net accurately predicts the other 20%.
Yeah.
But
The more
did
training you have, the
somebody
better.
mentioned that don't mix it with a British tub?
Yeah, because then they, you know.
Yeah, it'll
One's
ride
over
on
the
the
other
side of the
road.
road.
Yeah.
Not the steel. I was just.
So,
Is
yeah.
Pam rubbing off on you again?
So the biggest problem I had was actually in the, there's a problem in the instructions. If you're using a Mac, you've got to be careful. There's an extra instruction in there that's incorrect. And I found that from the Slack site, researching that basically when you install the Donkey Car software on the Mac, it actually comes with a version of TensorFlow. But then in the instructions, it wants you to, then it says install version 1.3 of TensorFlow. And then that causes a problem. And so I had to basically back it all out and start again on the laptop. You know, delete the conda file and do source activate and install it all again. And then I still had a problem. There was an incompatibility between the TensorFlow and the Pi, which is this version is 2.1.8, and I had to install 1.8 of TensorFlow on there, and then it worked. Then the training neural network matched the inference neural network. So, you know, you build a model, and the TensorFlow software loads that model to do the inference. So you have to make sure they match. And of course the error message you get, you know, you have to search the web to find out what that means.
Gives you no clue as to actually.
Yeah.
The something's wrong error message.
Yeah. So,
Just says, oh shit.
so yeah, I mentioned the steering was problematic, lighting is problematic, and then deleting content. So you know, if you want to retrain it, I had to retrain the neural network because of the lighting. I mentioned the lighting. So I deleted my tubs folder, and no, I deleted the contents of the tub folder, and it didn't like that. Where's my JSON file? Where's my something JSON file? I don't know. It's gone. I can't find it. But if you delete the tubs folder completely, it will recreate another one and put a config file there for you. So it's like anyway. So there's little things like that. Again, I'm not bitching and moaning at them because they've done a brilliant job, I think. But the instructions hopefully will get cleaned up. The other thing that I need to mention is that the actual autorope.donkeycar on GitHub, it hasn't been updated for about 2 months. But there's a branch of it, which I found later. And that branch it has been updated daily. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of wipe it all down and start again with this other guy's. It's called Autorope is the one that they recommend, but it's not been updated for 2 months. So all these bugs I'm talking about, they haven't been pushed to production or whatever. This TAWN Kramer, Torn Kramer donkey, he seems like he's got some. He's updating it daily. And one of the things I liked about his stuff was, you know those movies I showed you?
Yeah.
This original donkey car came with the ability to make a movie. He's applied the neural network to that movie, and he'll overlay the steering inputs. I'm curious to see what he's doing. And maybe like a Tesla that shows you where the lane is. The neural network is actually telling you this is what I'm going to do, and that's curious because then you could actually, before you embarrass yourself in your donkey car out on the track, you could run your training and see how good it's going to be. It's kind of a simulation, yeah. Except with the real data. It overlays the steering commands on the video, which I thought that's kind of cool. But that's only in this TAWN Kramer donkey on GitHub.
Donkey. He has a bunch of donkey-related repositories.
And he looks like he just looks like he may have a better handle on this stuff. So
He's got Kalman filtering things in here, and
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Behavioral cloning,
Light following.
lane finder. He's got some big words in here.
Yeah.
Good brain.
So who's next?
Right?
Anybody? Oh, ready?
Ross, that was fantastic.
If I can help anyone, I will, you know, just because it's frustrating running these problems, but hopefully they'll update the documentation and you won't run into the same problems I did.
I was just wondering, could we get the ones we have and put them all on the table, the ones that are here today, and then we can put a photo of them up on Slack?
Yeah, there you go. Put your green one.
The green one up there. I'll get my kid parts.
Your Scott's printed different colors, so.
So how do you configure your car so it's controllable by remote control and by your
Yeah, and that's where the actual
That's actually pretty
the
easy.
web server.
Okay.
You want to record it?
Their Pololu has a board
Okay.
that essentially allows you to have a single input and two possible outputs of PPM.
Okay, got it.
So you can essentially select which one that you want.
So basically, instead of plugging the steering and throttle from this to that, it's just a switch.
Yeah, it's the switch.
Anyway, they had that.
It's just a digital switch.
Yeah, so it switches these PWM inputs for these other PWM inputs
Yeah.
to go into the servers.
So it would go.
So what's it used for the throttle? Because a lot of the throttles are built in into the cheap ones. They put the throttle electronics in with the same receiver electronics.
I think what you mean is the motor control, where the motor's wired directly, because most of the good ones, the radio has a PWM
For both, for
the
you have
throttle
two
and for the steering.
PWM signals.
Gotcha. I'm talking about for the cheap RC cars. A lot of the cheap RC cars, when you say go forward or whatever, all the coming out of there is just wires to go to the motors.
Yes,
You don't have.
Yeah, that's right. The cheap ones are integrated. If you go to a hobby store, at the hobby store you get the receiver, and then you get the ESC, which is the motor controller. Yeah.
Okay. Where did Scott's gone?
Yeah, Scott's gone.
Okay.
People like the skateboards, so it's cool. Varying degrees of completeness. We have some approaches.
Yeah, this one right here is pretty much straight up out of the document. Right, because I ordered one of the other cars that they spec'd out of it, and I printed the parts to go in there, and I had, of course, pies and stuff laying around. Not that big a deal.
So that's like one of the $100 cars?
It's a $100 car. Yeah.
Okay.
And, well,
Hey,
this is a
guys.
$100 car too, but it's a different.
Smile, smile, guys. I want to smile. Great.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Get Carl in there.
Carl, you want to get in there?
No, stand by your parts. Stand by your parts.
Just smile, guys. Okay. All right, wait a minute. Hold on a second. I got to figure out what's original.
Very expensive to dirt cheap.
Well, you can imagine this thing's brand new.
There we go.
Expensive, but
Oh, yeah.
All right, one more, dudes.
$100.
Maybe we could get a brief, people could give a brief summary of what they're doing. Like, what is that mess?
Okay, I think I got it.
I'm sorry. Did I think that or say it?
Yeah, sure.
This one's got a ways to go.
Yeah.
Of course, it's ahead of the rest of us that don't have anything on it.
It's real easy for us to talk.
This is on Carl's time scale, which Ray documented very clearly earlier. Paleologically, yeah. This is a Club Robot from 2016, and it's about ready for a wiring harness now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, you're just a few screws loose.
No contest.
What is this material?
Huh? This is the, what do you use, like
That's just masonite.
masonite?
Okay, but it's been painted. It looks
Oh,
It's been
yeah.
heavily.
The best,
I'm going steampunk.
the best paint for it is to first prime it in white and then use an epoxy paint for the finish.
Now,
Forever to dry,
push 'em in the
but
slot?
once it dries, it's cool.
Did you laser cut that?
No, that's Carl's. Now, I don't know how he painted his. Oh, yes, the laser cutting,
everybody.
everything is laser cut.
Just not that.
Good to see you, Will.
All right, we'll see you
Great
guys.
to see you,
Bye.
Ron.
See you, Ron.
Bye.
Okay,
Pile of junk out of the-
all right.
Oh, that's where the.
All right, the video is now officially off.